before the Bible can instruct us, it actually has to be revelation to us. And it's actually to reveal the reality of God and the character of God. A lot of times when I see Christians interacting with the Bible, what I see is them kind of doing devotional readings of the Bible to see how this particular scripture can be applied to my life today. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing at all. Actually, I think that's part of what the Bible is for. Scripture tells us that it's useful for teaching, right? And training us up. And so I don't think that's a bad thing. But I do think that there's actually a precursor to that. I think before the Bible can instruct us, it actually has to be revelation to us. And you might have heard this kind of acronym before, the BIBLE. It's the basic instructions before leaving Earth. And well, that's kind of cute. Some people really treat it that way, like the whole reason the Bible exists is to tell me what to do in every situation in my life. And I think what would be really helpful for Christians would be to understand that primarily, first, before instructing us on anything to do with life, what it's there for is it's actually to reveal the reality of God and the character of God. And that's why the Bible starts in Genesis 1:1 with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And as you read through Genesis, it reveals some things to us. It reveals to us that there is a God, that he's separate from the natural world. He actually created the natural world, but he does actually interact in the natural world, that he cares for some reason how we relate to him. He cares how we relate to each other. And any of the instruction that we get out of the scriptures is actually based on this reality of God. And so before we can even follow the instructions, before we have reason to follow the instructions that the Bible gives us on how to live, how to interact with each other, or how to interact with him, it's building on this foundation that he actually exists, that he's actually there. And so I think that's really important for us to understand before I even have reason to act on what the Bible teaches as far as how I live. I have to be building on some foundation, and that foundation is that God actually exists. And again, I said I think that's interesting that it starts off in Genesis 1:1 that way. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it's not till later that we get to instructions, right? Like it could have started with the book of Proverbs, which Proverbs 1:2-3 says that this is for learning wisdom and discipline, for understanding insightful sayings, for receiving prudent instruction in righteousness, justice, and integrity, right? And so there are parts of the Bible that are for teaching, for instruction, for practical, handles on how to live life. And like I said, scripture does say that the scriptures are useful for teaching and for rebuking and correcting and for training us up in righteousness, right? Preparing us for every good work. And so that's all true, but that all comes after this understanding, this revelation that there is a God. He's outside of nature. He acts in nature. He cares how we relate to him, and he cares how we relate to each other. And I think that once we have that foundation, that there is a God, that those things are true about him, we understand his character and who he is. We see that even in the Old Testament laws that sometimes we can get confused about or not understand because it was written to a culture that isn't ours in a time that we don't belong to. We can look there and we can see the character of this God moving humanity who is far from him closer to him, moving humanity who's fallen away from him closer to him. And we can see his character at work there. And then we're actually able to have better insight, or to be able to interpret better what scripture is saying and what is God trying to say to us now in our time. And sometimes it's going to be exactly word for word what it says in the Bible. And sometimes we're going to have to take the heart, the spirit of what God was doing there in a different time, in a different culture, and then play out what that looks like in our time and our culture. And what we'll know is that if it's consistent with the character of God, it's going to look the same, maybe further down the line, right? And so I think that this is really important for us when we're reading the Bibles. It's not always just about me. It's not just about my preferences or what I think or what God is trying to show me about this situation in my life. And I think we can find a lot of those things, and I don't think that's a bad thing, again, that we read the Bible in that way. But my encouragement is, what's God trying to show us about himself? in the Bible? What's he trying to reveal to us about who he is and about his character, about his desires, not just for me personally, but for all of humanity, about the way that we relate with him and the way that we relate to each other. And that's one of the things I love when you even just read through Genesis, is that you see this God who actually put humans in rulership, in management status over the whole world. And then you begin to look at the world and we ask, wow, why are things so messed up and why are things so crazy? Well, the Bible tells us in Genesis because, well, there's this great God who's outside of nature, who acts in nature, and he actually put us over nature. And what have we done with it, right? And then the story of the scriptures is him bringing us back into right relationship with him and redeeming us to him. And then the instructions that we receive are for us to then act in relation with him in the right way and act in relation with each other and the world that he put us over the right way, to steward all those things well, to do what? To bring heaven on earth. That's what the Bible is teaching us. But before we can get to the instructions that lead there, we have to understand the reality of the God who's instructing us. And so I want to know more about who God is and see what he's trying to reveal to me about himself in the Bible. And I think that when we have that foundation, then the instructions that we receive on how to live are going to be more understandable. We actually have a reason to act on them, and we can see in line with who God is, what his character is, what his desires are for us, where those instructions are actually intended to take us. You know, that it's not to hold something back from us, but it's actually to get something better to us. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, you enjoy this kind of content, or if it maybe just made you think about it a little bit, if you find that helpful, engaging, challenging in a good way, hopefully, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and keep coming back to the page. See you next time.